you with you. This has been an interview we've been planning for quite a while, and I do apologize it's taken as long as this to get it off the ground. I promised you this. I unpacked everything just for you, my friend. So yes.
Thank you very much, Brook.
I appreciate it. We haven't connected in quite a while. Next time we're coming out to London, we're definitely doing some drinks.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to maybe just give a quick introduction to our viewers and our listeners about who you are, what you're doing, and we'll get into a little bit of your story.
Okay. Well, my name is David Kalloo. I was born in Trinidad. I grew up in Arima, which is in the east of Trinidad. Arima being the only royal borough outside of the UK.
It's true.
It was something to be proud of. I think they still use it as part of their name. Not as widely as it should be, but they still use it. And I came to the UK in 1989. When I came to the UK, my skills was in sign writing, and I tried to get into that sort of field, but other things took me into different directions. And in 2005, after leaving formal education at the age of 13, I went to university.
Fantastic.
And studied Caribbean studies and media studies. And my writing took off from there. I wrote a lot on Notting Hill Carnival because Carnival is, as most Trinidadians, it's in our blood. And I was always fascinated about Notting Hill Carnival, even as a kid growing up in Trinidad, seeing people like Darcus Howe and other Claire Holder and all these people and Sonny Black. And all these people really fascinated me. And I mean, I saw Sonny Black one time in Port of Spain, and this man had a fur coat on in Trinidad. It was pretty, but Sonny Black is an icon.
Yes, absolutely.
He is an icon, and he's not celebrated enough.
I would agree.
I mean, he's been bestowed with quite a few tributes in Trinidad, but he's not given the real credit that for all the cultural work and promoting Trinidad and Tobago culture, I should say. He needs a bit more credit and recognizable credit, I should say.
Yeah. Yes. I agree. Yeah. I mean, yes, for those of you who don't know, Carnival has been one of the major exports of Trinidad and Tobago. And just like you saying, when it took off in Notting Hill, it was such a breakthrough. It was such a cultural signature. It really brought the culture front and center into the heart of London, still going to this day, as many people know. So it was fascinating that was the cultural thing that really caught on. I mean, we have music, we have food, we have all of these different cultural things, but the Carnival, for some reason, really resonated.
Well, Carnival is the one event that connects every single class of people in this country, even in Trinidad. It's the one thing that connects everybody together. There is no other event that I can think of that really connects people culturally in that way.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe assessment. Yeah, definitely. So I mean, let's take it back a little bit and let's hear about David Kalloo as a young man growing up in Arima. Were you a problem child or are you a good boy? What was life like back then?
Yes, I was a problem child.
Good.
I gave my mom a lot of trouble, and a lot of those troubles would be revealed in this book, Jumbie.
And we will get to the books. All of those. We have some watchers, Terry in the audience and Rhonda both saying good morning to you. But yes, please do continue.
Yeah. I was a problem child. To be honest, I wouldn't say I didn't like school, but things outside school fascinated more than the classroom, and I learned a lot from my adventures, but I didn't learn a lot academically to take me on to the next level of things that I really wanted to do as a young person. And some of that is in Jumbie in Town, I express, because Jumbie in Town is more or less, it's like a childhood autobiography.
Oh, so we don't want to give away too much in that respect.
Yeah.
But I mean, growing up in Arima must have been a fascinating time,
It
Yeah,
certainly was. I mean, when I started work life, I was speaking to somebody about this today. Arima is very industrialized. We have a
yes,
very big industry in Arima. We have everything from manufacturing to cocoa plantation, coffee plantations, you name it. We have it in Arima.
it's true.
We're sort of we're the eastern hub of Trinidad.
Indeed.
Um, and at that time, as a young person, as getting into employment, um, I had this notion like to see how many factories I can work in in Arima, and I think I probably got through about like 20 factories.
Wow.
Yeah, like you would leave a job today and you can get one tomorrow. That was the sort of thing that used to happen in those days. But growing up, I mean, my mom was definitely an educator, and she wanted me to have an education. And she said, "Okay, well, I can't control you," so she moved me to San Juan to live
Right.
with my
Okay.
uncle, and I went to Seventh-day Adventist school there, and that's where I finished my primary education
Yes.
in Seventh-day Adventist school. And after that, I didn't pursue any formal education again. I did a couple of courses, business courses, as you know, Uriah Butler Institute. They used to do like courses, like I did a
Short
lot of,
courses. Yeah.
short courses and stuff like that. But so I always, learning was always something that I wanted to do. But unfortunately, I didn't do it in school.
I don't think that's a bad thing. I think a
No.
lot of people need to unlearn a lot of things that they learn in school,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, growing up with your mom, pushing the education and so forth. What inspired you then? Because you did eventually make the move over to the UK.
Yeah.
So what was the inspiration for that and your pursuit of education?
Moving to the UK, I got married.
Oh, good on you, bro.
Yeah, and my wife, we were at the same school together.
In Trinidad or?
In Trinidad, yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so we were at the same school together, and years later, I saw her. She came to Trinidad to visit, and I saw that like in Trinidad you have this colloquial way that you say, I'll pass and check you.
I'll pass it, yeah.
Yeah, but I never did. And then she visited another time, and I said, I'll pass and check you, and I did.
Good.
I did go and check her, and we started going out from there, and the rest is like sort of history from there. So we got married, and I came to England in 1989.
Yeah,
and that's how I'm here now. But it's been a long journey.
Yes.
Trying to pursue the things that I want to pursue, and one of the things is that I started late in life to really start realizing some of the things that I wanted to do. The vocational things, if
Sure.
you know what I mean. Yeah, vocational things. And these things start happening after I finished university. I wrote my thesis on Notting Hill Carnival, because that was one of the things that was very close to my heart, because my interest in Notting Hill Carnival really started when one of the founders of Notting Hill Carnival died. And I wanted to write something about this, because Lawrence Noel.
Right.
He was one of the founders. He is one of the first people to bring out a full carnival band at Notting Hill.
Yes.
And when he died, I wanted to write something about him, and I can find no platform. And I decided to create a newsletter. And I wrote, the newsletter was more or less all about Lawrence Noel. And
Fantastic.
I got other people to say a couple of words about him and stuff like that. And the newsletter went on for a couple of years, on and off. I used to try and bring it out monthly, but, and then...
It's a lot of work, yes.
Yeah. And then I was at the High Commission, the Trinidad and Tobago High Commission, and this guy approached me and he said, could you do a feature on the winner of the Digicel competition, which is the equivalent to X Factor in the UK.
Yes.
And I thought, well, I can't really do something like that of somebody with this stature on a newsletter.
Yes.
And I turned the newsletter into a magazine and called it Culturepulse, because the newsletter was called Culture Scene.
Right.
So I when I started the magazine, people said they didn't like the name Culture Scene for the magazine. So I put it out there to a couple of people, and they like Culturepulse. But whether they liked it or not, I had already decided that's the one I'm going with.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I'd made the decision already, but I still wanted the feedback on stuff like that. So, and that's how the magazine was born. I mean, so far I've published 58 issues of the magazine. COVID has, because the magazine is based on events and people's progress in the diaspora. There is nothing to attend to, so gathering stories and stuff like that was a bit difficult. But now that COVID is easing out, I say that with kind of bated breath,
Yeah, we all hope, indeed.
Yeah. Now I'm gonna go back into producing a magazine. I mean, the magazine has been a free magazine since its inception, but I think going forward, I'll ask people to pay a small subscription for it.
I think that's fair. I think for those who are watching us for the first time, I actually do have the issue link below for Culturepulse. So if anybody wants to take a look at the work and so forth, and you featured, as you say, the Caribbean diaspora of people out here in the UK making some waves.
Yeah, very much. And it's not only, I don't only feature the Caribbean diaspora. I mean, if you come here from Africa, from India, from America, Canada, wherever, and you've done something, you've achieved something, or you actually, doing something for the community, we will feature you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Just very quickly, was there any guests or any interview that you did for the magazine that just really stood out for you? Like, oh, wow, this is such an honor.
Well, two big things that I did in the magazine that I'm really, really proud of. One was feature Jessica Huntley. Now, Jessica Huntley and Eric Huntley, they set up the first Black publishing house in the UK.
Yes.
And they were called Bogle Overture Publishing. And they published people like Walter Rodney, how Europe underdeveloped Africa.
Yeah.
That was one of their major publications, the first major publication. So when Jessica died, I featured her in the magazine, and the entire magazine was dedicated to her. People wrote articles about her and stuff like that, and that was big. But the next major issue, which I should point out here, that Culturepulse is an online magazine.
Yes.
And I decided at one time to start featuring people, noted people in the magazine. And I started off with Ron Ramdin, very...
We have a small break in the stream there. David, are you still with us?
Yes.
Yeah. We just froze for a second there. Yeah, you were telling the story.
Yeah. So Ron Ramdin, his famous work is the black working class of Britain. And
yes.
I recommend people read that book. People who into Black history and in the UK and stuff like that. Anybody who's into prejudice, racism, and all that. So it's a good book to read. And I featured him, and I featured an essay that he wrote. I can't remember the title of the essay, but Ron Ramdin liked the magazine so much that he had copies of it printed. So
fantastic.
It's the only printed.
Oh, David, we've lost you again. You still with us? Oh, we seem
yes,
to be
I
having
am.
some we seem to be having some internet connection problems. So it's the only copy that have been
the only printed copy
that at least you know of.
Yeah.
That is quite an achievement, though. That is something to be very, very proud of. But I mean, you spoke a little bit about how later in life you kind of came to the idea of, the vocational aspects to your life. Yeah. Obviously, you wanted to be involved in media. And where did the inspiration to start being an author? Like, was it from the work on the magazine you decided you wanted to get into more book publishing and these things?
No, even from a young boy in Trinidad, growing up in Trinidad, I always wanted to be an editor of a magazine. Really? And fantastic. I don't know if you remember in Trinidad, the only newspaper that carried, like we say in Trinidad, highfalutin jobs,
Yeah, yes.
was the Guardian.
Correct.
And in the Guardian, you would see ads for, sub-editor and editor and stuff like that. I said, you know what, I could do that. I could do that job, but I didn't have qualifications for it. I had no idea what an editor did anyway at that time. But as I grew older, I mean, as a young boy, I wrote loads and loads of short stories and stuff like that, and I, discarded them at a certain stage in my life, not thinking that one day that
that might be good to have.
I would be in this position. So when I came to this country and when I started university study, I was at the time, it was a very nostalgic time for me, and I was missing Trinidad a lot. And I started to write a story about some friends in Trinidad and myself, and so I used to type with the 1-2 fingers, and
as we all start off, yeah.
When I started university, I realized I had to write essays. So my wife lent me a Pitman typing book to learn to type.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out the poetry business. So I just chucked the book in a corner and I started writing a story, which is Green Mango Chow.
Yes.
I said I will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I would learn to type and I would write a story as well. And so that's how Green Mango Chow came about. But the idea behind Green Mango Chow came from when I visited Trinidad and I saw people selling mango chow in plastic bags going to Maracas Bay.
That is a very popular tradition, that you buy a bag of mango chow on the way to Maracas. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, and that's where the name for the book came from. Green Mango Chow.
For those who are not aware, I do have a copy. Unfortunately, I'm only about halfway through the book. But how long ago was that inspiration then? If you don't, yeah.
Well, I started writing Green Mango Chow more or less like in 2005. But I always had the idea in my head to write this book.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But the name of the book weren't there yet.
And for anybody in the UK who hasn't had it, if ever you make it to Trinidad, you have to try a mango chow. It's just part of the religion at this point. But yeah, in terms of learning to type in university, that was really the birthplace of having this book come together.
Yeah.
And as you say, it is based on a lot of your friends, because when I'm reading it, and we were kind of discussing this before the show, there's obviously the main character, Ma Draper, who this whole thing kind of centers around, and she's kind of the matriarch of this community. And, it's an open house, people are coming and going, she has a mango tree in the back of the house. Every morning she's picking up the good ones and some are being eaten by the birds. And I'm reading this story and it's like, I know this woman, right? In my community, I had a lady just like that. In fact, my grandmother was very much like that in St. Anne's, where she lived on the borough in Port of Spain. She had the mango tree and same kind of lifestyle. So that was one of my questions, and you kind of answered it for me, saying that you wanted to write a book about your friends, and that became the evolution of Mango Chow. So it is a little autobiographical, would you say?
No, I'll correct you there, because the Green Mango Chow is not about my friends. That story was it's in my shed somewhere at home.
Oh, okay.
But Green Mango Chow is not. It's based on some people that I know, other characters I've made up.
Of course.
For anybody, I took part of the story of the policeman in the book from a well-known policeman in Trinidad. Right. So I kind of creamed off a little bit of his story into the book, but it's not about him. It's just characteristics of him that I based the policeman's character on.
Right. Yeah. That's the father. I suppose
anybody who's reading the book will say, this reminds me of this kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting that a lot coming through of it. You know, I was like, that's why I had to ask: were these real people? And as you say, they're maybe based on real people, as all good fiction sometimes can be.
Yeah. But
So,
Ma Draper is based on a real character.
oh, you beat
This,
me to it, man.
yeah.
I was gonna
So
ask.
there was this woman in Arima on her way to school. She always put out these mangoes and
On the fence kind of thing.
on the pillar, you know,
Yes.
and they were John mangoes, you know, Mango John.
Nice.
Yeah, so really nice mangoes, you know. But I changed it around to incorporate the green mango chow because, you know, in Trinidad, you know, I don't know in the community that you grew up in, people didn't eat what we call mango hog, you know,
Right.
rose
Yeah.
mango.
Yeah. Yeah.
You only use that to make curry mango and anchar and all that sort of thing. You understand? There was
Yes.
never, and for people who don't know what anchar is, it's dried mango mixed with masala and pepper and stuff like. It's like a pickle.
Yeah. A pickled mango in a way. Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's fantastic. And what I loved most of all, and I think this is something that you might have a passion for, because we discussed this in some of our other exchanges. I loved the colloquial dialect, right? I loved all of the, you know, lackadaisical, you know, Trinidadians are lackadaisical, you know, all of the sucking of the teeth, the stoops and all this kind of thing. I was reading it, I was just kind of chuckling to myself. It's like, oh, that's how you spell the word. I never thought that's how you would spell these Trinidadian words. So obviously you have a passion for some of the colloquial language, and you did mention you're trying to preserve a portion of that as part of the Trinidad culture. Would you speak about like the importance of the language?
Well, I'll give you a little example of something. In Trinidad, we say when we go to the market, we say, "Could I have 2 pounds of fig?" And
Yes.
you know, you mean bananas.
Yeah,
You understand?
exactly.
And when I went to Trinidad one year, and people weren't saying fig anymore.
Really?
Yeah, people were saying, you know, people they weren't saying fig, they would say banana. And
Right.
I picked up on that in the market because I love a market.
Me too.
I picked up on that in the market, and people weren't saying like potato anymore. You know, if you go
Right.
to you know, like for instance, like Indian people that go to the market, they say, okay, 2 pounds of aloo.
Right.
People weren't saying aloo anymore.
Yes. Yes. Oh, we've kind of frozen again there. David, you still with us?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, as I was saying, you know, in Trinidad, you say Irish potato, or the Indian people will say aloo. But
Aloo,
I
yeah.
noticed that those words were missing, and I thought, you know
Mm.
what, when I'm in my story, I'm going to preserve some of these words because some of the words that we use back then, the people don't use them anymore in Trinidad.
It's true.
So it's good. I mean, the whole language is changing. This whole, you know,
Oh, we've frozen again. We've frozen again. David, you
yeah,
still there? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even in the new edition of Kotisi Kotela,
Go to see
some of the
yeah.
words that I see in there, I say, but that's not the way that's not the context in how we use those words
Indeed.
back in. Because if you refer to the first edition of Kotisi Kotela, you would see the difference in how we spoke, how we pronounce the words. It's slightly different in but the good thing about the new edition of Kotisi Kotela, it gives you a little background and a story
A history.
behind the
Yeah.
words. Yeah. It's like some years ago, my wife and I, we were discussing about where do we get, so how do we say certain things in Trinidad? You know, why do we say Jep? Why do we say
Right.
Zaboka? You understand?
Right.
And you know, the French word for Jep for a wasp is guep, and
Right.
you can
So
see how the corruption
the
from that, and also for Zaboka, the French word for for Zaboka, which is an avocado,
avocado. Yeah.
is les avocats.
So the
So
French influence, you'd say, kind of
yeah,
Creole. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
some of these words. So I wanted to preserve some of these words in the writing, and in my writing, I do preserve these words. And then I'm doing a new novel, which is a sort of a spy novel, and wanted I'm trying to preserve some of the languages in there as well, but I'm not giving away where the character is from.
Okay, fair
Yes.
enough. Fair enough.
Yes, I'm keeping so somebody from any of the island can base that character in their island.
Right, right. So
You
it's a
understand?
Caribbean
Yeah.
feel to it,
Because
but nothing specific.
yeah, because we've not
Good.
in all the writings and things that I've known. I'm not saying that there isn't, but not that I know of. There is no main character as a spy person from the Caribbean.
That's an interesting take.
People may say, oh yeah, James Bond character was born in the Caribbean, but he's not Caribbean.
He's not Caribbean. No.
He's not Caribbean.
Yeah,
so this character in this book is purebred Caribbean.
Fantastic. Yeah. I mean, just for our UK watchers and listeners, some of the things, the Codicico de la is a Trinidad and Tobago dictionary of sorts that kind of shows some of the very, very colorful phrases. So I mentioned lackadaisical, which is such a great word. I'm so glad you put that in the book. It just means lazy. It's a fancy way of saying lazy. One my mother used to love was abzocky, right? Which is something that's just not fitting together, right? Yeah. So yeah, I fully respect that. In terms of preserving the Trinidad culture, it's a big part of our culture. Some of it has gone mainstream. You know, I think there was a recent music video with DJ Khaled and Kevin Kerwin Dubois, and he's using DJ Khaled is using the word lime in like the Caribbean sense, you know. So some of it is taken off, but some of them are so rich. You know, whenever something, well, as you would very well know, so I catch myself many times in conversations, the words would slip out, and everybody in the room, when I'm hearing the wails, is like, what the hell did you just say?
Yeah.
And it gives an opportunity to kind of share on that. So I'm very grateful for the work that you've done, and I do hope you continue to do that.
Yeah.
And so going just very quickly into the Ma Draper, who is somewhat the protagonist. I mean, it's not like a classical adventure story. It's kind of an homage. It's kind of honoring these matriarchs in the society. And you said you had a lady like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have you had good contact? Are you in this book as one of these characters?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not in I don't feature in this book at all.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But what was your experience with the real life Ma Draper that you had?
I don't think many people. If I saw this character this Ma Draper character that I put in the book, if I saw her twice or three times in my life, I've seen her a lot.
Right.
You know, but on the times that I did see her, her head was always, tied.
Yeah. She
was always, immaculately dressed. You understand? She's always pristine. And the character Ma Draper herself, I took the character from another person that I used to see visiting the market and married the two
fantastic
to do that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, your writing about the market was so rich.
Yeah.
And what I loved about it, like all the different characters. So there was like the woman that knew all the international news and the local news and who's pregnant with who. And
yeah, well, you have that in every area. In Trinidad, we call them Mako.
Mako. Exactly.
They know everybody's business, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Or they're fast. They're very fast. Yeah. No, I love that. And I love the scene, she's moving around and, she's made friends with a lot of the market goers, and some of them would just give her the treats, like your money's no good here. They just enjoy the conversation. I love that entire scene. And that took me back to many trips out to the Port of Spain market. I used to make that trip every Saturday, with my mother and my sister. And it was such a hustle and bustle, as I'm sure the Arima market was very much on par.
Oh, yeah, it's the same. Yeah, every market's the same,
Yeah. Obviously, you visited the market as a young man many years ago. Yeah, definitely. So that whole dynamic of the people and the interactions and stuff, I love the way it's come across in the book. I do plan to finish it. I promise you I will finish it and leave a fantastic review once it's all said and done. But I want to touch very quickly on your more recent book, which is Jumbie in Town. Am I right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I apologize. I haven't bought that book yet. I'll probably buy it fast if you give me a signed copy. I'm sure that's going to be something worth something. But I wanted to get a little bit into that, because you've done something that even me as a young man, I wanted to get into some film and some creative work. You incorporated a lot of the Trinidad folklore. So, you know, every culture, every nation has their particular folklore. We have a very unique set of characters, you know, the Sukunya, the Laja Bless, Papa Bois, you know, and they're classical tropes that we see throughout all cultures, but we have a unique spin on them. When I was a young man, I wanted to do a film called Mayaro, which was basically a guy driving to Mayaro very late in the night, and he encounters the various, creatures and everything like that. You know, the lager who is like running alongside the car and then turns into a wolf and stuff like that. I mean, back then they didn't have the technology to do it. I could probably do it now.
Yeah.
But I wanted
to. It's very feasible now.
Now you could do it, yeah. So I wanted to hear, where did that influence of the folklore come from? Obviously, as a young man in Arima, where did you encounter that, and what inspired you to put it into the book?
Well, I always wanted to write a story about my mom, because my mom was very influential in our lives. We grew up single parent, and my mom worked very hard to, you know, provide for us, you know, put shelter over our head, clothes on our back, foods in our mouth. And I wanted to do not a tribute to my mom, but something to remember her by, you know. And my mom would always recite these stories about Lagahu and Dwens and all of that. Basically, really, I think she really did it to keep me at home, but it didn't work. And the more she told me these stories, is the more intrigued I was to find, because I doubt these things exist, you know. And one of the first stories that she kind of that I remember her telling me was about this guy in Sangre Grande who chopped down a silk cotton tree, and, you know, he eventually died because the silk cotton tree is seen as, you know, the place where evil lives.
Yes.
And she said, you know, if you chop this tree at midnight, you know, or at midday, you know, it bleeds blood. And I said, what? I've got to see that. You know? So
just how old are you when she's telling you these stories?
Well, I was 10 when these adventures began.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, just going on 9, 10 when this adventure began.
Yeah.
But just taken back a bit from that, my stepfather died at home.
Okay.
And back then we lived on the edge of a forest. Where we lived in Arima, it was forest. We're not talking like Epping forest or anything like that. We're talking about dense forest. You know, if you go in there, you have to get a bulldozer or something to make a track. You know, so it was really dense forest. So when nighttime came, the noise that came from that forest, and as a kid, you only thinking, you know, there's you know, creepies in there,
all sorts of crazy things out there. Yeah.
So definitely. when my stepfather died, my mom lit a flambeau and she said, "Could you go and call the neighbor?" Now the neighbor lived about 1,000 meters away from where we were. Now in the daytime, that doesn't seem a lot. But in the nighttime,
with no street lights,
and a flambeau in my hand, and I remember this very, very vividly throughout my entire life. I was standing there with the flambeau, and there was this dome of light around me, and I'm thinking, I don't know what's in the forest. There's a dead body inside. I don't know what's behind, but up ahead, I'm not gonna face that. And I stood out. In my mind, I must have been out there for about 2 minutes, but it seemed like hours. And I was crying in tears. And my mom came. She took me inside, told me to sit with my sister on the bed, and she would go and get the neighbor. I said, "Well, this is worse. I'm here now with the dead person."
Oh no!
Yeah. I said, "I'm here with the dead person." So I'm looking at my sister, and I'm thinking, what if this dead person, you know, stands up and comes and attack me? What, you know? So that was my first experience with death.
Sure.
And from then on, I kind of come to the realization that, you know, death is something that we have to accept in our life.
Absolutely.
And and that wanted to incorporate. That is one of the things. I became fearless after that. I said, if I can be there with the dead, nothing can trouble me.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
the stories
so,
definitely
then,
don't help.
Yeah, and then I started going to look for Jumbie, and the first thing that I set out to do was chop the silk cotton tree.
Oh, did you find one?
Yeah, there was loads in Arima in the forest
back then, not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore. I think if you find a silk cotton tree now, you'll be lucky.
It's quite
indeed. But I ended up chopping the silk cotton tree in Sawan.
Oh, ironic. Not in Arima, in Sawan.
Yeah, not in Arima. And when I chopped this tree at midnight, I was so disappointed when there was no blood.
It didn't bleed.
No, it didn't bleed. I even started hacking at it again in rage. What the hell?
My mom lied.
I said no blood never came.
Oh,
but
that's crazy.
There's an ironic twist to the silk cotton tree story. I visited Grand Canaria some years later in my life with my family, and we were having a picnic under a silk cotton tree, not a big one, a small one,
Sure.
And I was trying to break out one of the thorns,
right,
as a souvenir, and the thing punctured my finger.
And
so
that's
the only blood that that's the only blood that came.
Half true then, right? Half true.
Yes, yeah.
It's all open to interpretation.
Yeah, but all the other, I mean, the book is not chronological.
Right.
I tell the story with regards to each story has its own merit. It's not in chronological order. So if people read in the book, they will say, "Oh, how comes he was this age then and now he's and then So it's not chronological, but all the quest and thing that I've made, I've come across some weird times. One of the most frightening times was when my mom was doing some washing late in the night.
Right.
And she always did the washing late in the night because, having work, I'd been at work all day. She's come home, she's done all the chores, make sure we're fed and we into bed. And, the following day, she would always say that, there's a lagger who, always watching her.
Yeah.
So what's she talking about, lagger who? There's no lagger who. And my mom was not somebody easily frightened.
Right. And
then she said to me one night, she said, "Oh, could you stay up with me while I do the washing?" So she's lit her flambeau. I made in those days we make slingshots to go shooting birds and all that sort of thing. So I've armed myself with my slingshot, some nice round pebbles, and she's made me a cup of coffee. So I'm there sitting, and then suddenly she stopped, and she says, when she held up the flambeau, and she says, "There's something there. I can see the eyes."
Really?
So I've gone now and I'm looking, and I said, "I can't see anything." So I put a stone in the slingshot and I fire.
You're ready to go.
Into the bush.
Yeah.
And by the way that the stone went through the bushes, I knew it didn't hit anything. And then I fired another one and it hit something.
Really?
You understand? Yeah. So I started following, going through the bush, and my mom was calling me back, and she says, "Come back," and blah, blah, blah. So, but I did get a whiff, like a wet dog.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was a bit frightening at the time because I was.
But you didn't see anything though.
I didn't see anything.
No. Theater of the mind kind of moment.
Yeah. So and then you can hear little rustling in the bushes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's figment of your imagination or whatever. But that at the time, that's it. But I did get that strong smell of a wet dog.
Yeah.
But that was the most frightening aspect of my adventures in the whole book.
I look forward to. I'm looking forward to reading some of those stories, man. So I'll definitely get it. And when you say for those who don't know, a lagahu is a shape-shifting creature. So I mean, we have a couple people in the UK probably wondering what we're talking about.
Well, a lagahu more or less is like a werewolf.
Yes.
Yeah. But this character doesn't turn into a wolf. It's like a half
Yeah,
human.
it's a
It's got
dog-like kind.
yeah,
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 it's
yeah,
some four-legged thing.
yeah.
Um,
And it is rumored that he walks around in chain and carries a coffin on his back.
right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot about
So
that.
yeah,
So I mean, obviously, your mother's influence in sharing these stories had a big impact on you, and
yes, yes, yes,
so
very
much so
much.
that you went looking for them, right? So that
Yeah.
I mean, did you have a favorite?
Um, well, my favorite well, my favorite character of these folklores is Papa Boa.
Papa Bois.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Papa Boa. And the thing with Papa Boa, I think my mom was really into Papa Boa herself. She was very much a conservative,
Yes, an
conservation person.
environmentalist,
Yeah,
conservationist. Yes.
environmental. And like in the Papa Boa story, I talk about Papa Boa's influence on the forest, because he was a protector of the forest.
Yes.
You understand? He wasn't there to bring harm to people like the other folklore characters.
Correct.
He was there if he brought harm to you, it's because you were damaging the forest or killing the animals.
Yes.
And when I went off with a woodcutter to look for Papa Boa, the woodcutter pointed out, several places where he had seen Papa Boa and all of that. But again, it brought a little disappointment on that day when nothing
Nothing
presented
happened.
itself. Yeah. But I learned so much from that woodcutter that day about the forest. When I thought I knew a lot about the forest, I didn't really know anything. You
Yes.
understand? It reminded me of when I went to do Caribbean studies at university. When I got there, I said, I'm going to ace this because
You're
nobody
from the
can't tell me.
Caribbean. Yeah, you
And
know the
nobody can't tell me
Caribbean.
about the Caribbean. How wrong I was when I started doing that course. Yeah. I knew absolutely nothing about the Caribbean.
It's a huge history. You're so
Yeah.
right in
I
that.
knew
Absolutely.
absolutely nothing about the Caribbean. And when I visited the forest with the woodcutter that day, I realized I knew absolutely nothing about the forest until then. And it was a big education for me. And in part of the Papa Boa story, I gave mention that if we had taken heed of Papa Boa, then we wouldn't be in this sort of stage that we are with the environment. Because in Trinidad, if we had an old fridge, we throw it in the ravine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
all our rubbish, we just dump it. A dead animal or whatever, we just dump it into the ravine and stuff. It doesn't really matter. I mean, even in Port of Spain, Dry River, you see
Yeah.
all of that sort of stuff. So that's going straight into the ocean.
Correct.
You understand? And
While flooding the city at
when
the
it
same
gets when
time.
it gets when it gets to the delta in Port of
Yes.
Spain, it's got nowhere else to go.
Correct.
You understand?
Correct.
So we have that problem, and a lot of people say to me that we talk about climate change and stuff like that, and they said, oh, these things never happened in Trinidad. I said, we've always had floods in Trinidad. Port of Spain was always flooding.
Correct. Absolutely
It
agree.
is, yeah, flooding in Port of Spain is not a new thing.
Correct.
That's been going on for years and years. Back then, the only way you would know there was a flood in Port of Spain if somebody come and tell you, or you watch it on Panorama.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah, but things weren't widespread as we know now. As soon as something happening,
It's on
you
your
you,
phone.
you know it.
Yeah.
Anywhere across the world, you would know it. So half of these things, I'm not saying that the flood isn't more intense now because of more housing. We've got more people living in Port of Spain. The hills are being chopped down to make way for housing.
Correct.
Where is all this water gonna go? There's
Correct.
nowhere for water to be absorbed into the
To
soil.
absorbed. Yeah. The
Yeah,
slash and burn and
and
the developments. Yeah.
and this is what even the same thing happens in this country, in the UK. They're building houses on water tables where water would be absorbed, and now there's nowhere for the water to go, and
Correct.
there's no adequate draining to take this water and to drain it elsewhere. So all of these things that people don't actually think about when they start telling you about climate change and all these sort of things. They just tell you, oh, you got to stop using plastic, you got to stop doing this. These things are very menial things that they're asking you to do. It's not
It's not really
it's not
addressing the real
generate
issues.
real change in our attitudes. I mean, I really I have a total disgust for plastic bag. People just chuck it away. I mean, you can put your plastic back to so many other uses rather than just throw it away. You know. But
Yeah, I
there you
agree.
go.
Obviously, the influence of
I'm not
Papa
one for
Bois
climate
coming
change.
through. Yeah, well, we could probably do an entire show on that one as
Yeah.
well. But obviously, yeah, the influence of Papa Bois from your mom. Obviously, you do
Yeah.
care about the environment that's coming, and you approach it much like me in a practical sense. Like, let's do something that actually makes a difference. So,
Yeah.
yeah, we could do a show on that another time. Just very quickly, when you were out in Arima and you're with your mom and you're hearing these stories, as I say, your mom obviously had a little bit of belief in this, in these different things.
Yeah.
Did the rest of your family kind of share in that? Was it like a family sharing the story?
Oh
or
yeah.
was it-
Whenever my mom told a story, it would be myself and my two sisters who would be sitting down listening. And these stories normally transpire like when rain's falling.
when you
know?
can't go outside?
Yeah, when rain's falling, I can't go outside to play or whatever. You know. And most of the times when I go off on these Jumbie hunt, as I call it, you know,
The Jumbie
there was
hunt. I
always
love it.
the leather belt or a good bit of caning always followed, you know.
Can't do that now, but back then, yes, it was licks. You get licks.
Yeah.
But I mean that shows tremendous courage as a young man to go looking for the duendes and Papa Bois. That's a lot of bravery, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean, I ventured looking for Lagahoo in Chamflair one time.
Yes.
Because I was visiting some family there, and they said Lagahoo, chased this guy, and he almost got killed.
Wow.
You know?
Okay.
So, and then one of my cousins says, "Oh, the man they suspect of being the Lagahoo was an Obia man,
right,
in Chamflair." And so I said, "Well, I've got to check this out," but I didn't want to tell them anything because they would, start, telling me all sorts of different stories. So I went to Chamflair one time and did a reconnaissance of the area where this guy
where the
lived.
man is, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I said I would need, from where it was, I said I'd need a binoculars to actually get a view of this place.
Man. Yeah.
So, yeah. So a friend of mine, his dad was always going to the races in Arima, and he owned a pair of binoculars. And I said to him, I said, "Could you steal your dad's binoculars and lend it to me?" So he says, now he was a very upright person. And he says, "No," he said, "I can't do that, blah, blah, blah." So eventually he did. Yeah.
You convinced him.
And where we lived wasn't far from Christina Gardens. That's famous place where Abdul Malik murdered Gail and Benson.
Yeah.
And along there was lots of Julie mango trees,
Oh.
So I went and I harvested some Julie mangoes, and I rewarded him with 6 Julie mango for the binoculars.
Fantastic. And what did you see? When you put the surveillance to the test, did you find anything?
Well, it was a very thrilling experience. Now, on the night that I decided to carry out my surveillance on this place, there was a feast going on. Yeah. So there was like a bonfire at the back of the house, candles lit all over the yard, and there was some intense drumming going on. And then
you can't paint a better picture for surveillance.
Yeah. And then my cousin, who told me that this man is the Lagahoo, he came in the yard with a goat over his shoulder. Yeah. And the so-called Obia man, he was there with a, dancing around, like good little dub beat thing going on.
Yeah.
And he was dancing around with this machete in his hand, with a sash over his or across his neck. And then next thing you know, the goat head was off.
Wow.
Yeah. I almost fell off the tree that I was on because I climbed up a tree, and then people started, somebody with a torchlight start flashing over into the adjacent lot of land where I was. And, that was very scary as well, but not as scary as the incident with my mom,
Yes.
And then I had to abandon it because I said later on, like 2 people started with flashlights. So I said, next thing you know, they're going to come over in this bit of land and find me. And that I might end up like Galen Benson.
Or the goat.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Time to head home.
Seen enough,
So
yeah.
I didn't remain for anything else. Yeah.
That's an awesome story. That's an
But
awesome
anybody
story.
wanted to find out, like if I found anything, they
Yes.
got to read the book.
David, yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, yeah. Man, the internet is just on it's on the
Yeah.
skids today.
Yeah, I was saying before you froze there. I said anybody wanted to find out if I
Yes.
found anything, will have to read the book.
I will definitely be putting an order in, and I do have your Amazon page, your author page from Amazon in the description if anybody wants to go and order the books.
Right.
Have you just very quickly? Have you done any promotional work for the books? Have you done any like meetups or anything?
No, I haven't done any meetups or anything, but I did have an interview on Trinidad TV about the book, and the
You were telling
Trinidad
me about that.
Guardian and Newsday carried a story on the book as well,
Excellent,
which
excellent.
was fantastic.
So just we got about 10 minutes left. Let's just talk a little bit about the art of self-publishing, and
Yeah.
it looks like you're kind of going into that as a venture, as a consultant as well.
Yeah.
How I mean, obviously this is something you want to share. You want more people to kind of get into this space. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah, because I was holding out for a traditional publisher for Green Mango Chow. I wanted it to be a traditional publication, and I got offers from people saying that we'll publish a book, but you have to purchase X amount of copies. And I'm thinking, well, why I can do that myself? Why do I need? I don't need you to do that. If I have to buy copies from you. Yes, Brook. All right. Yeah, I realize. I am. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay.
David, I don't know. I do apologize, my friend. My internet is completely backed up on me. I'm on my phone to finish this out.
All right. No problem. No problem at all.
Yeah, I appreciate your patience, my friend. Just very quickly, because we've only got about 2 minutes left on this.
Yeah.
You and I will probably have to we'll have to do a follow-up just to kind of finish out on the consulting and the business that you're doing. But do you have any events coming up, and what's the best way for people to reach you if they want to get more information?
Well, I mean, people can reach me on. We have a bit of an echo.
I don't know. Hold on, that might be on my end.
Yeah.
I probably need to get my headset, but yeah, just keep going, man. Let me see if I can get the headset sorted out.
Yeah. People can reach me on my LinkedIn page.
Yes.
And also, they can email me, davidtkalloo@gmail.com, if they want any more information on the book and what I'm doing. And as you know, my books are available on amazon.com.
Ooh. Hold on. Let me get it sorted.
All right.
I'm just having all sorts of problems. For those who are watching, we do have all of your links below. So I do apologize for the condition. I just spent a whole bunch of money because I'm working from home to try and get all of this internet stuff sorted out. But
Yeah.
for some reason, it's just not helping me.
All right.
Yeah, can you hear me, David?
Yes, I can.
All right. We still have a bit of an echo. I do apologize.
Yeah.
Just give your closing thoughts on your projects, and we'll close it out from there.
Well,
Ooh.
There's a bit of echo there.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming through the headset, so there really shouldn't be one. All right, David. We'll finish this up another time, my friend. Let's because I got to get back to work. But thank you for your time. Thank you, viewers. I don't know what happened with the technical issues. Hopefully, we'll get that sorted for the next time.
No problem at all, bro.
Good to see you, my friend. All the best, and thanks for everyone watching.
Thank you very much.